Ryan Sierra suddenly wakes up in the middle of nowhere, confused about everything. His identity, where he is, and why he's chained up. As he slowly gets up and starts walking, the emptiness around him sets in. He pauses and wonders how long he's even been walking. Soon, he spots something in the distance, a body. A woman's corpse lies lifeless on the ground. Panicking, Ryan looks around in disbelief. Where am I? Who did this? He mutters. But as fear starts to consume him, something inside him clicks, and just like that, all the fear and disgust vanish. That's when he feels a hand on his shoulder. He spins around and sees a tall man with long hair. The man asks if Ryan was the one who killed the woman. Ryan denies it immediately. The man, calm and observant, notes that Ryan doesn't exactly look like someone who could rip open a person's chest barehanded. Helping Ryan up, the man admits he doesn't know where they are either. Not even his own name. Ryan's shocked when he hears the man say he wasn't chained like him. Before they can process more, a blinding light flashes above them and papers fall from the sky. Each gets a slip. Ryan reads his. It has his full name, says he's 19 years old, and that he's searching for his older sister. The man's paper says his name is Tenjin Cho, 35 years old, married with kids. Confused, they question if the info is real. But then, a robotic voice echoes. Weapons are now being delivered. Weapons materialize in their hands, and new instructions appear. They have 5 minutes to kill each other. If they don't, their suits will electrocute them. The winner must summon God. Shocked, Ryan and Tenjin stare at each other. Is this a prank? Ryan shouts. But Tenjin is already on edge. This corpse is real. These suits won't come off. This isn't a joke, he yells back. Ryan realizes that, prank or not, this is now his reality. If I have a family, I have to survive, he whispers. Tenjin charges at him, but Ryan hesitates to fight back. As he dodges Tenjin's wild swings, he wonders how he even ended up in such a twisted situation. Finally, he manages to slash Tenjin once. But he can't finish the job. That hesitation almost costs him. You're lucky your hands are chained. That's a free handicap, Tenjin mocks. Ryan regrets not ending it sooner. In the next second, he regains control and slices Tenjin's neck. No more hesitating, he says coldly. Tenjin begs, saying he needs to return to his family. But Ryan, without another word, wraps his chains around Tenjin's neck and snaps it. Holding the note that fell from Tenjin earlier, Ryan stares at it, emotionless. I don't know why, but after killing him, I felt nothing. Then a light appears. I am God, says a voice. Ryan stares into the glow, unsure if this is real. What is this place? He asks. God responds. It's a realm created specifically for this game. Apparently, 2 million souls were brought into this round. Why can't I remember anything? Why am I even here? Ryan keeps asking. God doesn't give much away. After delivering vague answers, the voice disappears, leaving Ryan in a new place. Now, he's surrounded by dozens of other people, all wearing the same outfit as him. He surveys the crowd and thinks, in a survival game like this, the weak always get picked off first. As he walks, a mannequin-like figure suddenly speaks, welcoming him. Ryan is stunned. Did that thing just talk? The figure introduces itself as Mr. Yora, the facilitator for the next round. Ryan demands to know what's going on, but before Yora can answer, another contestant interrupts, a guy named Euron. We already tried asking. He won't tell you anything, Euron says, trying to be friendly. He offers a handshake, but the moment Ryan touches his hand, an overwhelming pain shoots through his chest. What the hell was that? He gasps. Then another voice cuts in. Shinjin Take, stepping in like a boss. Euron quickly claims he didn't do anything. Shinjin calmly summons his weapon, shocking everyone. Euron says he was just testing Ryan's potential. Shinjin brushes him off and looks straight at Ryan. You'll be my partner, he says. Still confused, but sensing this guy is serious, Ryan introduces himself. Shinjin nods. Let's move on to the next round. Ryan suggests asking the mannequin, Mr. Yora, about the next instructions. But Yora says they'll get the rules after they leave the room. Shinjin doesn't waste a second. Let's go, he says. Ryan follows, wondering why he's in such a hurry. As they step into a new area, a strange path opens up from nowhere. Ryan, still in awe, asks why Shinjin chose him. Your eyes, they remind me of gods, Shinjin replies. Ryan is left stunned. Just as they continue, they meet an old man and an elderly woman. Ryan shouts, You've got to be kidding me. Seniors in a death game? Shinjin warns him not to engage. Don't get attached. It'll be easier when they die, he says coldly. Ryan agrees. The old man introduces himself as Jiren and the lady as Sarah. Suddenly, Mr. Yora shows up again, this time dressed sharply in a black suit and top hat, holding a ball. Ryan is surprised. Yora looks completely different now. Yora explains the rules for this round. Whoever holds the ball earns points for their team, 1 point per second. The team with the most points after 15 minutes wins. The losers? Eliminated. That means death. Oh, and killing is totally allowed. Just don't drop the ball off the platform or both teams lose. Jiren asks what eliminated really means. Death, Yora replies plainly. Sarah immediately summons her weapon. Rian freaks out. Everyone else already knows how to summon weapons. God never taught me how, he yells. Yora finds that interesting. Without further delay, Yora announces the game begins. Shinjin dashes at Jiren, but Sarah intercepts him. That leaves Jiren alone with the ball, and Rian. Rian looks at the ball, and then at the elderly man. Sorry, but I need to win this game, Jiren says, shooting flames from his walking stick. Without flinching, Ryan runs straight through the fire and punches Jiren square in the face, knocking him out. Standing over him, Ryan wonders why he can see through attacks. What exactly are his eyes capable of? Shinjin yells, "Finish him." But as Rian stands there hesitating, Sarah drives a blade into Shinjin from behind. She glares at Rian. Are you seriously hesitating now? Rian tries to run, but Jiren grabs his leg. Sarah beats him relentlessly, yet he refuses to let go of the ball. Yora watches in fascination. Even while being attacked, he refuses to drop the ball. Ryan held on tightly to the ball, enduring the relentless blows from Sarah and Jiren. Despite Jiren's desperate pleas for him to let go, Ryan refused. Sarah kept attacking without mercy, but he didn't give in. Watching from a distance, Yora seemed fascinated by Ryan's determination and questioned why he continued to fight so hard without even knowing what he was fighting for. Ryan responded firmly. He said he wanted to understand the truth, something to live for. Sarah and Jiren tried to wrestle the ball away from him, but Rian suddenly leaped off the platform with it still in his hands. The others yelled at him, calling him reckless for not dropping the ball first. Just as the situation spiraled into chaos, Shinjin, who had been injured and motionless, rose to his feet. He pulled out the weapon Sarah had stabbed him with and moved quickly. Catching Jiren off guard, he delivered a fatal stab. He mumbled an apology to Sarah, who froze in shock as Jiren collapsed. Furious, Sarah launched a savage attack on Shinjin. Meanwhile, Rian realized his risky plan had actually succeeded. Shinjin was back in the fight. Still, Ryan couldn't shake off the growing fear in his chest. He admitted to himself that his actions were driven by fear. Fear of death, fear of the unknown, and above all, fear of meaninglessness. As Jiren lay dying, he began to speak. He mentioned vague memories, 3 children, a wife who had passed away, but said that none of it meant anything to him. The worst part, he confessed, was the emptiness that followed. For people like them, there was no real reason to fight. Yora then announced there were 3 minutes left in the round. Rian noted that they had accumulated more than enough points and concluded that Sarah couldn't possibly catch up. Shinjin told her it was over, but she wasn't ready to surrender. She spoke of suicide as an easier end than whatever God had in store, and then added that if she could kill both of them in the remaining time, she would live. She launched another aggressive charge at Rian. He analyzed her movements, realizing how fast and powerful she had become. He blocked one of her attacks with the ball and continued to dodge. Shinjin remarked that her speed had increased, and Yora, still observing, explained that when people stood on the edge between life and death, desperation could awaken hidden strength. Sarah was now glowing with energy, burning with a final will to survive. Rian found himself both in awe and overwhelmed by her sudden surge in power. With one brutal hit, Sarah pierced Ryan's chest. As she prepared to finish him, Shinjin struck from behind, severing her right arm. She screamed in pain, furious at Shinjin for holding back his strength earlier. Shinjin replied that he preferred to keep his real power hidden and criticized her for using all her cards in the early stages of the battle. Even after being disarmed, Sarah continued to attack, but Shinjin finished the fight with his flame-coated blade. Ryan lay on the ground, thinking back to how he had once believed he was strong, but after witnessing both Sarah and Shinjin in action, he began to understand how outmatched he truly was. He realized that in this game, there were monsters far beyond his level. Sarah, now defeated and crying, lamented that someone like Ryan, so weak in her eyes, shouldn't be allowed to live. She confessed that her brother was still missing. Shinjin gave a short response, saying he would find the boy, then ended her life with one final swing. Yora clapped his hands and declared them the victors of round 2. As he said this, Ryan's wounds began to heal, including the injury in his arm. Shinjin turned to him and said he had done better than expected, though he warned him never to try the platform jumping stunt again. Rian interrupted, walking straight to Sarah's lifeless body. He retrieved the paper from her pocket and read her information aloud. She was Sarah Jones, 18 years old, searching for her brother. Shinjin tried to stop him, saying it was pointless to mourn the dead, but Ryan insisted that remembering her name mattered, especially after the promise made. Shinjin replied that it was a promise made to someone who no longer existed, but Rian argued that the promise still held meaning. If they ever found her brother, they would save him. Shinjin pointed out that they might end up having to kill him instead. Afterward, Rian approached Jiren's body and found his note too. The man had been 80 years old, with 3 kids looking for him, and a wife long gone. He had willingly entered the game. Rian quietly questioned what sort of world would make someone want to participate in something this horrific. Shinjin, ever practical, cut him off and urged him not to waste more time. He asked Yora to move things along. Yora handed out a small trinket to Shinjin and a cross to Rian. The next moment, Rian found himself elsewhere entirely. In this vision, he saw a small boy standing near an older girl. The girl ran over and showed him a silver cross. Rian immediately recognized her. It was Ikika. He tried to run toward them, calling out, but the girl gave him a cold look and asked who he was. Then the scene crumbled into nothingness. Back in the real world, Ryan and Shinjin were once again standing before Yora. Ryan furiously demanded to know what had just happened. Yora explained that what he gave him was a gift, a reason to keep going. Ryan stated that his sister was the only thing grounding him to this world. He grabbed Yora by the collar and asked whether the memory was real. Yora casually brushed him aside and told him that only he could decide that. Shinjin pulled Ryan away and told him not to waste his energy. He asked Ryan whether he thought he could actually take on Yora. Yora chimed in again, telling Rian to be thankful. He was now one step closer to his truth. Deciding they had wasted enough time, Shinjin dragged Ryan with him. They ended up in an enormous castle. Sitting on a throne at the far end of the room was a woman clad in heavy armor. She grinned at them and sarcastically welcomed the new arrivals. She proudly displayed her collection of armored suits, claiming that each one belonged to her favorite former contenders of the God game. When Ryan asked what kind of contenders they were, she explained that only the most ruthless, the ones willing to defy even gods, made it this far. Shinjin interrupted and told them to focus on the task. The woman introduced herself as Enyo, goddess of war and destruction. Shinjin remarked that he had never heard of her, and Rian reminded him that their memories had been wiped. Enyo found this amusing. She told them the condition for progressing to the next round. They had 24 hours to form a team of 3. Shinjin didn't hesitate. He immediately headed toward the next area. Rian stayed behind and asked Enyo if she knew anything about Ikika. She paused, then offered a deal. If Rian agreed to become her champion, she would reveal more. Rian hesitated. He realized that would give him 2 divine powers, which didn't seem fair. But Enyo reminded him that nothing about this game was fair. She explained that to become her champion, he would need 5 confirmed kills. So far, he had only 1, Tenjin. Ryan asked what would happen if he failed. Enyo said she simply wouldn't make him her champion, but if he succeeded, she would tell him everything he wanted to know about his sister. Eventually, he accepted. Enyo promised to watch him closely. After accepting Enyo's deal, Ryan walked through a new doorway and entered a massive dining hall filled with contestants who were casually eating. The relaxed mood confused him. He couldn't understand how everyone seemed so calm when they only had a day to form teams and prepare for the next deadly round. Knowing Shinjin's attitude, he figured his teammate wouldn't be wasting time here. Shinjin was probably already scouting for new allies, or even an entirely different team. Not far from where he stood, a loud confrontation drew Ryan's attention. A guy, Euron, was bothering a girl who was just trying to eat. He made a remark about wanting her on his team, commenting that he wouldn't mind a cute girl like her around. The girl wasn't having any of it. She responded with a punch to his gut and warned him to back off unless he wanted to lose his arms. Watching from afar, Ryan felt impressed. She had handled Euron effortlessly. He thought to himself that he might have just found the perfect third teammate. He followed her as she left the dining hall and walked into a quiet hallway. She noticed him and quickly turned, pointing a gun at his face. Ryan raised his hands, telling her he wasn't a threat. He said he was just impressed by how she handled Euron and wanted her to consider joining his team for the next round. She didn't trust him right away and wanted proof that he was different from the others. She brought him into another hall and pointed out a massive guy across the room, someone she referred to as the Boulder. She explained that he had killed her previous partner in the second round and was still alive, despite losing, because he was too strong to be eliminated. This surprised Ryan. If strength could keep someone alive in a game like this, why hadn't Sarah been spared too? She had pushed both him and Shinjin to their limits. That realization made him wonder whether he had actually surpassed her. Before leaving, Ryan introduced himself and asked for her name. She refused to give it, saying she'd tell him once he beat the Boulder. Despite knowing how dangerous it was, Rian walked up to the Boulder. The man immediately tried to strike him, but Rian dodged quickly. The Boulder said he could sense Rian's tainted aura and asked who he really was. Rian responded with his name and said he hadn't done anything to deserve aggression. The boulder insisted that Ryan would eventually do something. He could feel it. Ryan then asked how he was still alive after losing in the second round. The boulder replied that God didn't kill him because he was too powerful. A woman beside the boulder added that the God game was entertainment. Keeping strong fighters like the boulder around made things more exciting for the spectators. Ryan found that disturbing. If this was all for show, then the people running it had chosen who lived and died based on crowd appeal. Sarah, who had been stronger than him in many ways, was discarded because she didn't catch the audience's attention. He started to seriously question how powerful he really was in comparison. The boulder then said he looked forward to crushing Ryan in the future. Ryan responded by suddenly kicking him in the groin, shocking everyone watching. He followed it up with a punch, but the boulder caught his hand and crushed it before slamming him to the ground. Again and again, the boulder lifted and smashed Ryan into the floor. Still holding Ryan by the arm, the boulder repeated that Ryan had started the fight. After several brutal slams, he threw Ryan into the air and prepared to land a knockout punch. But in that instant, Ryan saw something. An opening. He twisted in the air, dodged the punch, and countered with a hit of his own, landing gracefully on his feet. The crowd gasped. Ryan debated running, but the possibility of winning and earning the mysterious girl's respect pushed him forward. He regained his composure and began fighting again, changing his strategy and dodging more precisely. As he started landing hits, the boulder grew more furious. He powered up, promising to kill Ryan for humiliating him. Just then, a man in dark shades stepped in and ordered them to stop. He threatened punishment if they continued. Another person appeared, this one wearing glasses. The boulder asked who he was. The man gave a casual reply, saying he was just another contestant playing the game. The boulder demanded that he move, but the man said they'd both landed blows, and since Ryan was clearly injured, the boulder should accept the outcome and back off. The boulder wasn't having it. He charged forward, but before anyone could react, the man in shades knocked him out in a single motion. Everyone stared in disbelief. The man walked over to Ryan and helped him up. He introduced himself as Yoon and the girl beside him as Kayla. They had both been watching the fight from the beginning. Yoon asked Kayla to take Ryan to the infirmary, which surprised Ryan. He didn't know there was even an infirmary in this place. Kayla used her healing power to fix Ryan's arm. He thanked her, but soon passed out from exhaustion. Ryan woke up to the same girl from before, the one who had knocked down Euron, sitting by him. She told him he had guts. Even though he wasn't the strongest, she admitted he had something a lot of others didn't. Kayla chimed in, warning Ryan that while bravery was admirable, constantly relying on God's mercy to heal him was a dangerous game. Ryan nodded, thinking back on the times he had thrown himself into reckless situations, sacrificing his arm against Jiren, jumping off the platform. He realized he couldn't keep testing his luck like this. The girl finally agreed to join his team. She said the deal was that if he brought down the boulder, she would join him, and he had kept his end. When Ryan asked if she had another teammate, she said she didn't. He told her he wasn't sure either, though Shinjin still crossed his mind. Ryan asked for her name again, and this time she gave it. She helped him up, and he thanked Kayla for healing him. He also asked where Yoon was so he could thank him in person. Kayla led him over, and Yoon greeted him playfully. Then Yoon got serious. He suggested that Ryan ditch Ara and join him and Kayla for the next round instead. Ryan thought it over, but ultimately declined. He said he'd already promised someone else. Yoon raised an eyebrow and asked who Ryan's third teammate was. Before Ryan could answer, Shinjin appeared and said he was the third. Yoon joked a bit, then moved on. As the group began to leave, Shinjin told Ryan that Yoon was probably the second strongest person in the castle. Ryan asked who the strongest was, and Shinjin said he'd tell him when they met that person. Shinjin then turned to Ara and asked who she was. She introduced herself properly this time, saying she was the third member of the team. Shinjin wasn't pleased. He told Ryan that choosing teammates without consulting him was reckless. Ryan replied that he didn't even know Shinjin would return, so he made the best choice he could. Ara tried to ease the tension by saying they seemed to get along and that Shinjin wouldn't regret having her on the team. Shinjin eventually agreed and told them to follow him. Ara asked where they were going, and Shinjin explained that Ryan still didn't know how to summon his weapon. If Ryan wanted to avoid being a burden, that needed to change fast. Ryan followed them to a training area where Shinjin began to explain how weapon summoning worked. He told Ryan to remember the feeling he had when he summoned it during the first round. It required a defining emotion, something strong enough to manifest the weapon. To demonstrate, Ara summoned her own weapon. Ryan was impressed and asked what feeling she used. She said it was longing. Ryan admitted that God never explained any of this to him. During his first round, he was chained and never had the chance to summon anything. Both Ara and Shinjin were stunned. Shinjin said he'd never heard of anyone being set up at such a disadvantage and pointed out that Ryan had survived the entire first round without a weapon and still managed to win. Ryan asked what Shinjin's defining emotion was. Shinjin replied that it was rage but didn't elaborate. When Ara teased him, he brushed it off. Shinjin told Ryan to dig through his memories and find a defining emotion. Ara agreed and encouraged him, saying it was a cool idea. Shinjin then made it clear, if Ryan couldn't summon his weapon, he wouldn't risk staying teamed with him. Weakness could doom the entire group. He reminded Ryan that he'd already warned him before round 2. Ara defended Ryan, saying Shinjin was being harsh, but Shinjin countered by saying the whole game was harsh. After all, 2 million souls were being forced to kill each other for sport. He finished by saying that if Ryan couldn't pull this off, he wasn't worth saving, especially when there were monsters out there like Yoon. Ara turned to Ryan and said he could do it. He'd already surprised her once. Ryan sat in silence, diving deep into his memories. After a long pause, his weapon finally manifested. He had done it, but something strange happened. He blacked out and started laughing uncontrollably. Ara and Shinjin were worried. When he woke up, he asked how long he'd been out. Shinjin told him it had been 3 hours. He then asked what Ryan's defining feeling was. With tears in his eyes, Ryan answered, bloodlust. Shinjin was visibly shaken by the response. Ryan tried to defend himself, saying that wasn't who he really was. Ara interrupted, saying that none of them really knew who they were. Ryan began to wonder how bloodlust had become his core emotion. He stood up and said that maybe the past didn't matter. What truly counted was who he would become. Shinjin disagreed. He said that in this game, the past couldn't be ignored. As long as Ryan kept slaying enemies, Shinjin wouldn't care who he was, as long as he didn't lose himself in the process. They began intense training to prepare for the next round, sparring, strategizing, pushing their limits. An hour before the 3rd round, they returned to the main hall. Shinjin pointed towards someone and said that was him, the strongest contender in the castle. Ryan looked over and felt a chill. Of all the terrifying people he'd encountered in the game, none had given him that kind of fear. Ryan asked who the man was. Shinjin didn't know his name, but from the looks of it, he was going into the 3rd round without a team. Ara was shocked. She asked if he was insane. Shinjin corrected her. He wasn't insane. He was just confident that he could wipe out everyone on his own. Not long after, both Enyo and Yora appeared to officially announce the start of the 3rd round. Enyo greeted the lone man Ryan and Shinjin had noticed earlier and asked if he was enjoying himself. The man, clearly not in the mood for pleasantries, called her annoying and muttered that he couldn't wait to silence her when all of this was over. Ara, watching them interact, pointed out that the two seemed to know each other. Ryan nodded, saying that everyone had met Enyo before arriving at the castle, so there wasn't much point overthinking it. Shinjin dismissed the distraction and told them to move ahead. As they approached the gate to the 3rd round, Yora asked if they were entering as a team. They confirmed they were, and he wished them luck while Enyo watched them pass through the door. Inside, Ryan asked Ara if she felt nervous. She said she wasn't. Shinjin told them that keeping their nerves in check would be the key to surviving. As they stepped through the threshold, everything went pitch black. Ryan couldn't see a thing and asked Shinjin to light the way. Shinjin responded cautiously, saying they were likely in a cave. A voice from the shadows confirmed this and then triggered the lights. Standing before them was a monkey-faced humanoid figure. Ryan blurted out whether that was supposed to be a monkey, while Ara noted he still looked somewhat human. Shinjin grew tense as recognition struck him. This wasn't just any figure. It was Sunday Wukong, the Monkey King. Ara turned to Shinjin, asking if he really knew him. He confirmed it and warned that they were now in serious trouble. Wukong introduced himself with a smug grin and said he'd be facilitating the 3rd round, explaining that Enyo had gotten into some kind of trouble, so he'd been brought in instead. He asked if they felt lucky to have him and added that he was excited to see if they could impress him. He then explained the rules of the round. Somewhere in the cave was another team. Both teams would be given a flag. The objective was simple: steal the enemy's flag and return it to their own base. Holding both flags would secure a win. The time limit was 3 hours and, as always, killing was allowed. Ara raised her hand to ask what happened if a team lost. Wukong told her this round was slightly different. If her team lost, he would choose only one person from the team to survive. Having delivered the rules, Wukong disappeared, saying he'd explain the game to the other team next and warned them not to cheat. He'd kill anyone who did. Ryan muttered that Yora wasn't nearly as annoying in comparison. The 3 of them started discussing strategy. Shinjin decided to remain on defense, guarding their flag, while Ryan and Ara would go on the offensive. Since they didn't know what kind of enemy they were up against, splitting their power evenly between offense and defense seemed like the safest move. Though there was some brief debate, Ara and Ryan eventually left together to search for the enemy flag. As they moved deeper into the cave, Ara remarked that Ryan didn't seem afraid, even during intense battles. Ryan told her it wasn't about being calm, it was more like feeling nothing at all. He admitted that whenever he was in a fight, it was as if something inside him flipped. The fear just disappeared, replaced by numbness. He couldn't understand why, but the feeling of bloodlust felt too natural. He said it had been 3 rounds already, and he still didn't really know who he was, or who Ikika was to him. Ara asked if the girl had appeared in the memory Rian got earlier. He said yes, but admitted that even if she stood in front of him now, he wasn't sure he'd recognize her. He then asked Ara if she was also searching for someone. She shook her head and said that most people she met in the God game had a purpose or a person they were trying to find. Her paper only had her name and age. No goal, no reason. Even the memory she received wasn't clear. It was just a vision of her sitting on the floor as a child, bleeding, while a shadowy figure stood behind her. She couldn't even see the person's face. Rian suggested that maybe finding out who that shadow was could be her reason to survive. Ara said that sounded like the kind of revenge story Shinjin would appreciate. Then, with a small smile, she told Ryan that she was actually glad he had followed her back in the hallway. Without him, she wouldn't have met someone as gutsy and strangely endearing as him. She thanked him. Back at their base, Shinjin remained on defense. Suddenly, he heard faint rumblings from above. Instantly on alert, he summoned his sword and aimed it upward. Wukong dropped down from the shadows, amused that they were meeting so soon. Shinjin demanded to know why he was interfering. Wukong casually dismissed the accusation, saying they were in a vast cave and no one would notice his presence. He then made Shinjin an offer. If Shinjin agreed to do something for him, Wukong promised to make him his champion. Shinjin asked what the favor was. Wukong said it was simple. He wanted Shinjin to succeed because his desire to win was among the strongest in the entire game. But that wasn't all. Wukong wanted him to kill Ara. Shocked, Shinjin demanded to know why. Wukong claimed it wasn't about Ara herself, but rather her current sponsor, someone Wukong had a grudge against that dated back centuries. He said it didn't have to happen in this round. Shinjin would have 3 rounds to complete the task, but the deal would be void if Ara died by any other cause. He wanted Shinjin to be the one to kill her. Shinjin accused him of dragging politics into a game that was supposed to be about survival. Wukong didn't deny it. He said that while the God game was packaged as entertainment for beings like them, it was also deeply personal. Wukong then added that for someone like Shinjin, killing someone he barely knew would be easy. He'd done worse. Shinjin didn't give a clear answer, but as Wukong disappeared, he muttered that when this game ended, he might come for Wukong too. Meanwhile, Ryan and Ara continued exploring the cave. Ara asked how long they had been walking, and Ryan estimated it had been nearly an hour. Eventually, they came across another flag. But before they could grab it, a sudden punch knocked Rian backward. Ara summoned her weapon and demanded the attackers show themselves. Out from the shadows stepped Toro and his team. Toro said it was a lucky coincidence that they ran into each other, as he had unfinished business with them. Ara immediately called out Shinjin's failed strategy. Ryan, on the other hand, began analyzing the enemy. Toro, with his massive gauntlet, was obviously a brute force fighter. Callister, his blue-haired teammate, stood beside him with a cold expression. Ara and Callister exchanged tense words, with Callister mocking Ara for being backed by a weaker god. Ara lost her temper and opened fire, but Callister easily blocked the bullets using walls of ice. Ryan watched closely, starting to figure out how Callister's divine power worked. It revolved entirely around manipulating ice as a defense. Then, Ara made a move that surprised everyone. She fired upward, seemingly missing, but then twisted the bullet's path mid-air. Toro rushed in front of Callister to protect her, confirming their tight synergy. Rian quickly picked up on the pattern. Callister's defenses were impenetrable, and Toro's offense was brutal. Together, they were a terrifying duo. Ryan also noticed the third teammate, a quiet figure named Haydn, who simply stood by watching. As the fight escalated, Ryan asked Ara if she had any insight into Toro's power. She gave a quick rundown, and Ryan prepared to fight. Ara told him that since he was charging in first, she'd support him from behind. Rian clashed with Toro. His gauntlets were destructive, and Rian could only imagine the damage if one of them actually landed. As they exchanged blows, Ryan tried to find a weak spot, but every attempt failed. He realized something was wrong. He couldn't read Toro's openings like he usually could. Then it hit him. Callister had been covering every gap in Toro's defense, creating the illusion of a flawless fighter. Unlike before, where Rian fought one opponent at a time, this was a real 2-on-1 scenario. Toro commented that Ryan was cockier than expected, and then landed a punch that sent Ryan flying. Ara screamed his name as he hit the ground. Toro told Haydn to stay out of it and leave Ryan to him, while Callister kept Ara busy. Ara confronted Callister and accused her of playing with her emotions. Callister brushed it off and said Ara never used her full strength in the last round. especially not her second pistol. That struck a nerve. Ara was hit by a wave of guilt as memories resurfaced. She remembered her previous partner, Lily, begging her to help as she was dying. At that time, Ara had held back, unwilling to use her second weapon. That hesitation had cost Lily her life. But now, facing Toro and Callister again, she wasn't going to hold back. She drew her second gun, shocking everyone. With 2 pistols active, her energy changed. Ara explained that her divine power split across the 2 guns. The first allowed her to curve bullets using her gaze, while the second could accelerate objects she could see. It was a deadly combination she had avoided using, until now. Callister, surprised and defensive, tried to hold her ground. She summoned an army of ice soldiers, but Ara shredded them with a storm of bullets, injuring Callister in the process. As Callister stumbled, she looked at Toro and told him it was up to him now. Ara ended it with a final shot, putting her down for good. Ryan and Ara then turned their attention to Toro. He looked toward Haydn, asking if he planned to just stand there. Haydn didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told Ryan everything. He had made a contract with a god. Haydn said nothing at first, simply watching as Toro prepared to fight alone. Ryan's attention shifted to him, suspicious. It became clear when Toro called him out. Haydn had entered into a contract with a god, but what that contract involved, no one yet knew. Ryan asked directly what kind of deal Haydn had made. In response, Haydn finally revealed the condition. He had to eliminate an entire team by himself. As if on cue, a puppet appeared in his hand. Cthulhu. Haydn asked the puppet what it thought of Ryan and Ara. Cthulhu replied that both were weak. The puppet's ability to speak stunned Ryan and Ara. Haydn agreed with the puppet's assessment, stating that Ryan was barely standing and Ara was on the edge of collapse. He asked Cthulhu which of the 2 was stronger. The puppet chose Ryan. Haydn admitted he thought Ara was the stronger one, but Cthulhu told him to wait and see. Then, without hesitation, Ryan charged at Haydn. But Haydn dodged easily and locked eyes with him, causing Ryan's world to suddenly darken. Ryan found himself trapped in a strange void and heard a voice telling him to stay calm. Then, Cthulhu appeared, growing larger and more imposing as it questioned Ryan about his deepest fears. Ryan managed to shake off the illusion and return to reality, something that stunned both Haydn and the puppet. Cthulhu remarked in disbelief that Ryan had escaped the Mad Dreamer, a feat no one else had ever accomplished. Haydn noted that Ryan's eyes must be the reason, capable of seeing through illusions like no other. Ryan quickly turned his focus to Ara, who was now caught in the same illusion. She was moments away from shooting herself in the head. Without wasting a second, Ryan rushed over and yanked her hand upward, causing the bullet to fire into the air. He knocked her out before she could react and gently apologized, whispering that she didn't deserve to suffer like this. Ryan then turned to Haydn and declared that he held him responsible. Haydn responded calmly, saying he found Ara interesting but had come to realize that Ryan might be just as insane. When asked to explain, Haydn said he wasn't referring to actions, but rather the voice inside Ryan, the one Ryan himself didn't seem to know much about. He claimed Cthulhu had revealed things that Ryan didn't yet understand. Ryan demanded to know what exactly Haydn was talking about. In response, Haydn said he would show Ryan a piece of his true self. Suddenly, Ryan saw a vivid scene, a couple's lifeless bodies lying in a room, a young boy nearby. He was overwhelmed with confusion. He didn't understand why these images were being shown to him or how they connected to his reality. The Mad Dreamer then told him he already knew who they were. He had simply forgotten. Ryan asked how he could know whether the memory was real. Haydn answered cryptically, saying that the body remembers even when the mind does not. He said Ryan's true self was something terrifying, and Cthulhu wanted to meet it face to face. Ryan's body started to tremble. He began to recall the moment he killed Tenjin, the switch that had flipped inside him, and the chilling voice that had guided him. That same voice surfaced again, dragging out a different version of him, colder, more brutal. Ryan's demeanor shifted, his posture changed, and his tone grew distant and calculating. He asked Haydn what he wanted, as if he were a completely different person. Haydn called this side of him the real Ryan. Cthulhu seemed thrilled, asking this version of Ryan to become its champion, but Ryan refused. Cthulhu tried to manipulate him by bringing up his family, suggesting that Ryan had forgotten everything important. Ryan grew angry at the attempt and warned the puppet to stay out of his business. His aura became terrifying as he glared at both Haydn and Cthulhu. They tried to trap him with more illusions, even summoning a fake image of his mother. But Ryan, unflinching, cut through the hallucination, saying she was already dead. Cthulhu realized that Ryan wasn't just immune to illusions, he was actively rejecting them. Haydn then used his ability to generate clones, making it difficult for Ryan to find the real one. Ryan analyzed Haydn's power. It worked by making eye contact, casting the target into a mental illusion, while in the physical world, Haydn could create doppelgangers and switch places with them seamlessly. Ryan launched an attack, trying to identify the real Haydn. He nearly succeeded, catching the real one for a moment, but Haydn escaped by switching again. Then he grabbed Ara's discarded gun and threatened to kill her. Ryan told him he wasn't fazed. If Haydn thought using a hostage would stop him, he was wrong. Even Cthulhu agreed, saying that Ryan had just cut through the illusion of his own mother. Clearly, threats didn't scare him anymore. But just as Ryan was about to strike, something inside him wavered. A voice deep within pleaded for him to stop. It insisted that Ara was his friend and didn't deserve to die. That brief internal battle ended with Ryan shifting back into his calmer, original self. Haydn laughed bitterly. He said Ryan had just thrown away his best chance at victory. He no longer needed Ara as a hostage. He was ready to finish this. At that moment, Shinjin burst onto the scene, launching a surprise attack. Haydn barely managed to dodge. Shinjin took in the sight. Tauros and Callister were dead. He ordered Ryan to grab Era and take the enemy's flag while he held off Haydn, but Ryan refused, saying Shinjin should be the one to escape with Era. After a moment of hesitation, Shinjin agreed and carried her away. Haydn fired Ara's gun at them as they fled. Ryan intercepted the bullet mid-flight, stunning both Shinjin and Haydn. Shinjin realized what had just happened. Ryan had cut through a bullet, something impossibly fast, with perfect precision. Ryan instructed Shinjin to avoid making eye contact with Haydn to prevent falling into the same illusion trap. Shinjin nodded and disappeared with Ara and the flag. Watching them go, Haydn muttered that there was something different about Ryan now. His movements were faster, his reactions sharper, almost like he had awakened a deeper version of himself. Cthulhu agreed, saying that Ryan had no speed-enhancing divine power. The only way he could react like that was if he already knew the bullet's path before it even fired. Haydn pieced it together. Ryan's eyes didn't just analyze, they predicted. He wasn't just reacting quickly, he was seeing the future. If you enjoyed the story so far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Yume Recap, and stay tuned for the next video.